Council, if you would pull out your purchase request for this afternoon, let me know if you have any questions or comments. I have 7 items listed for this evening. Councilman Ledford.
Chairman, thank you. Joda, can I just get a cost per unit on the speed cushions? That question's been asked over the years, and I've never really been able to answer it completely, like per unit, what they run. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions relating to our purchase items for this afternoon? If not, we will go to our March the 29th agenda, our 2-week agenda. Council, is there anything on our 2-week agenda that needs to come before this council at this time? Very well. Moving on to future considerations. Any item on future considerations that needs to be brought to our attention at this time? All right, very well. Everybody must be looking forward to our Public Works and Parks and Public Works Committee this afternoon, Councilman. All right, that does take care of all of our agenda items this afternoon. Are there any, is there any other business that needs to come before the council at this time? Councilwoman Knoll.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
If you would pull your mic down so that, there you go.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr. Chair. I had a question on the future consideration for District 8. There was 3. Was wanting to know if there was any homes that were going to be impacted.
Okay, what number and letter are you on? What number?
They were, I believe.
Are you under Parks and Public Works?
Mm-mm. Let's see. Which one was it? Okay, 9, 3, 4, and 5.
9, say that again, please.
9, 3, 4, and 5.
9, okay. Hey,
Yes.
Chief.
I can go ahead and get an answer for you, Councilwoman. I'm not sure right off the top of my head, but I don't believe so. But I will make sure that transportation is able to get you a clear answer on the future considerations item.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now, these are slated to be on the agenda for the 5th. If you're uncomfortable with having them placed on the 5th, we can always push them if we need to, or if you're just simply wanting more information at this point.
Just wanted more information.
Okay.
The 5th is
All right.
fine. Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you. All right, Councilman Ledford.
Chairman, we have an ordinance in our packet.
Yes, you do, and I'm about to get to that.
Thank you, sir.
Council, if you will dig through your packet, you will find an ordinance that I am bringing forward. I have drafted an ordinance placing a moratorium on accepting applications for non-owner occupied short-term vacation rentals. Given the number of concerns that we've seen over the last couple of months, and particularly the story that I heard a couple of weeks ago standing there at that podium about a non-owner occupied that we had denied, I felt maybe it was necessary to present to this council a moratorium on receiving applications. And the beginning date would be today's date, March the 22nd, and it would run up to and include January the 9th. That would give us, I guess, roughly about 9 months for us to be able to come up with additional regulations or address concerns that we have that I've heard from this council from time to time. So I would like to see this on the agenda as soon as possible, but I certainly want to follow our process, and I'm sensitive to anyone's need maybe of having it go through a committee if they so needed, but I see a couple of lights. Councilwoman Burrs?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that there's not a need for a committee because we've discussed all of this ad nauseum. I would like to put it on a week's agenda, please.
On next week's agenda?
Yeah.
That would be on the 29th?
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion to place it on the 29th with a proper second. I'm going to take, before we, I guess, take a consensus, I do have several other lights. Councilwoman Dotley?
I just want to say thank you for this moratorium. I have currently 10 short-term vacation rentals, none owner occupied. So I'm glad that we're finally taking action on this. I get a lot of complaints from my constituents regarding short-term vacation rentals, the impact they're having on affordable housing and economics all around. So I'm very excited about this, and I'm ready to. I agree with Councilwoman Burrs. Let's get it on as soon as possible.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for that support. Councilman Ledford?
Chairman, I also want to voice support for this ordinance. I think it's wise that we hit the pause button so that we can reevaluate the situation. We've had a lot of conversation from this dais. We had a lot of conversation from our citizens and residents of Chattanooga, and I think it's wise for us to listen to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hill?
Thank you, Chair. If we move this directly onto the agenda, let's talk through the opportunity we have to amend this. Would we then be amending it from the floor? So, for example, first thing that comes to my mind is just the reality that we likely have people who are preparing to be in the pipeline potentially even tomorrow, right? That is it appropriate to say as of a week from now, or do we need to talk through giving people up to a month? I'm just thinking out loud, having only just seen this, because I agree that the legislation needs to be redone. The ordinance needs to be rewritten. So help me understand, would we just be revising it from the floor if we go ahead and put it on the agenda?
If we put it on the agenda, it can always be amended from the floor with a motion and the consent of the majority of the council.
Okay. Okay, good. That would give
So-
me some time to think about it. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Councilwoman Conrad?
Thank you, Chair. And I agree with Councilwoman Hill. And, often when you quote often from the chair space of the process and adhering to the process. And I've been, giving that little pinpoint or two to make sure that I'm following the process. And I would like for, as urgent as the matter is, and I've been very boisterous about the non-owner short-term vacation rental as well. But it would be very hypocritical of me to not want to follow the process. And I think that being that we just getting the notice today, although I agree wholeheartedly, we've been talking about it for the 5 years that I've been on council, but I would like for the council to consider us to just follow the process. I mean, it still has the same exact impact, but we continue to pick and choose which we want to not go by the process and when we do. And I think we need to be consistent. It stays in line with us being professional. And I would just like for us to continue to follow those rules. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and take a vote then on getting it on to the agenda, since we did have a motion and a second. It sounds like we do have at least one objection. Let me just do it this way. All in favor of getting it onto the agenda on the 29th, I guess all in favor, just say aye. Any opposed? No? Okay, let's take a vote. Give me a roll call.
Councilwoman Hill? Councilman Ledford? Councilman Hester? Councilwoman Burrs? Councilwoman Dotley? Councilwoman Knoll? Councilwoman Conrad? Chairman Henderson?
I'll go ahead and vote yes. We already had 5, but that'll
Two
be
noes.
6 to place it on the agenda. Right? Okay. All right. So the moratorium on short-term vacation rentals will be placed on the agenda on March the 29th for a vote of the council and can be amended from the floor if needed. Councilwoman Burts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that we're hearing that we're working on the legislation to amend or change the law. Again, I'm asking, what do we need to do to enforce the law that already exists in the 4 districts who've said they didn't want short-term vacation rentals?
Well, let me, so.
Enforcement is still the
Yeah.
thing.
And I agree, and maybe that's something, and I think, I believe we have on our strategic planning agenda on the 5th, Councilwoman, I think we do have an update that Councilwoman Dotley had asked for. So why don't we save that discussion for then, since we're in agenda session currently?
Yes.
And it's not on our agenda, but we'll have that discussion on the 5th of April. Because we've got it lined up anyway to discuss.
All right, so will that be please included on the agenda?
Sure.
Enforcement of what
Yeah.
already exists?
If we would, Madam Clerk, just place that on there as well.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Conrad.
Thank you, Chair. In lieu of us having a discussion on April the 5th, and again, the $50 fine continues to be an issue around with our city court because that's all we can, give them. And I've brought up several times about getting our general sessions provisions because if we don't have it, then we're going to be limited to the $50 fee. And we're going to continue to quote that as, oh, well, the $50 is an issue because we can't charge them anything additional. So I'm just laying that back out. I mean, I may be bringing that back to the council for us to think about again because it makes no sense to keep talking about the $50 if we're not willing to do anything on our end, which we can do to try to change it. Thank you, Chair.
Sure. Councilman Ledford, other business.
Yes, Chairman, thank you. On that note, on a $50, I've been doing a little research and talking to some outside sources. This question is for the city attorney. Phil, the legal term or definition to do the $50 fine is if we were to day per day, day for day, tell me how one gets a $50 fine once, but how one can get a $50 fine daily so it actually has impact. I think it's in the wording.
Yes, sir. And the concern, I guess, is the Tennessee Constitution has got a provision in it that says that no court shall issue a fine in excess of $50 without the ability for a jury trial. Our municipal courts do not have the ability to have a jury trial for anything above that amount. And that has been the concern about trying to exceed. The $50 per day is okay. You can have a fine for a violation per incident if it continues to occur daily. And I believe the city judge has that authority, but it would be a separate offense for each day.
Councilman Holt, before we go down too many rabbit holes, we were really just saving this for any business that needs to come before the council at this time. If you would like to maybe have this as part of the presentation on the 5th, then let's do that rather than having the discussion here. If you would, Madam Clerk, let's add that to our strategic planning agenda as well. All right, anything else that needs to come before the council at this time? If not, I will turn the chair over to Councilman Hester for Parks and Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome to Parks and Public Works. First, let me say, I'm glad it's spring. Can we accept the minutes? Madam Clerk, Resolution Public Works E and F, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to approve change order number 1 final with Kineclone Construction of Tennessee, Inc. of Chattanooga, Tennessee for contract number R15021201, various parks ADA improvements for final reconciliation of unit items, additional work at the Warner Park Pool Shade Structure and the Avondale Community Center for an increased amount of $91,339.84 for a revised contract total amount of $653,659.34.
Can we
I
get Mr. Huff up here? I think Councilman Lefford had a question regarding 7E. You still have that question?
There we go. Thank you, Chairman. I did have a question earlier about the ordinance, whether it was strictly related to the 2 items that were highlighted in the caption, but I just got an email from Mr. Payne, and it looks like a very long list, which would verify the districts 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, and 8. So I'm good. Tom, great answer.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you. I wanted to know what projects were going to be improved in District 2. I'm checking my email. I haven't gotten an email. So what ADA improvements are going to be happening in District 2, please, Mr. Hutko?
I'm sorry. It's on?
That sounds like it is.
It is? I'm just very soft-spoken, once in a great while.
You're like 10 foot tall.
This is a final change order to reconcile unit prices for the course of the contract. This is the last couple of things to be done under this contract, which is the Warner Park Pool Shade Structure and the Avondale Community Center are the last 2 projects. All the other ones have been finished.
And what work was completed in District 2 under that contract?
I'm going to have to, Bill, unless you know.
The list is not exactly broken down by district, but there was work done at Stringer's Ridge at the Hamilton Trailhead. But I'll be glad to send over the rest of the list because there are a couple of others on here that I don't specifically know the district, but I do have the list. I'd be
Okay.
happy to
Yeah,
share.
Stringer's Ridge isn't in District 2. It's in District 1.
Oh, which is the reason why I should have just said, I'll send you the list.
Okay. All right. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
You good, Councilwoman?
I am. I'm seeing a lot of work happening in lots of districts related to our parks, but I'm not seeing a lot of work getting done in District 2. So I'm just keeping an eagle eye on it, Mr. Councilman Hester. Thank you.
Thank you. F, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew blanket contract number W2001-201, paving and concrete repair of replacement for year 2 of 4 years with PRI of East Tennessee, Inc. of Knoxville, Tennessee, and TNT Concrete LLC of Calhoun, Tennessee for an annual amount not to exceed $1.5 million.
I see no lights. 7B, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number Y21021201, John A. Patton Community Building HVAC installation to Cagle Development LLC of Chattanooga, Tennessee, in the amount of $1,474,000 with a contingency in the amount of $100,000 for a total amount of $1,574,000.
Thank you. C, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number R21006201, multiple tennis court improvements at the Batters Place Recreational Facility to Competition Athletic Surface, Inc. of Chattanooga, Tennessee, in the amount of $133,701.20 with a contingency amount of $13,500 for a total amount of $147,201.20.
No hands. D, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number Y19007-201 Watkins Street HVAC replacement to Williams Development LLC of Chattanooga, Tennessee in the amount of $426,472 with a contingency amount of $42,600 for a total amount of $469,072.
Chairman.
Chief, I just, it's my understanding that we need to remove
That's right.
this item from the 2-week agenda, basically,
Yes.
so that it doesn't make our agenda.
That's right. The administration has been conducting a more robust facilities assessment. And before this was actually installed, we actually went and took a look at the Walk-in Street facility and felt that there may need to be some further evaluation before we install the nearly $500,000 HVAC system. So we would like for this to respectfully be pulled from the agenda.
Okay. Council, I'll make a motion. We remove item 7D from the 2-week agenda.
Second.
Just asking if there's any objections.
Are there any objections with it? Okay, we're gonna remove that from the 2-week agenda. Okay. Thank you. E, please.
A resolution rescinding resolution number 30995 to clarify project funding sources, project ownership, and regulatory compliance requirements, and authorizing the Public Works Administrator to execute a revised memorandum of understanding with the Industrial Development Board for the City of Chattanooga for design and construction of multiple wet weather storage facilities to reduce wet weather wastewater overflows within the regional wastewater collection systems relative to the environmental and economic infrastructure improvement projects E2 I2 with the Hamilton County Water and Wastewater Treatment Authority.
Councilman Leffert.
Chairman, my question is related to item C. I apologize if I can rewind to C.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Hey, Tom, this is real exciting, District 4. We've been watching Batter's Place for a while. A lot of folks have been wringing their hands in anticipation of getting back to tennis, but also with the popularity of pickleball. So I saw in the contract that was added in to stripe and I guess accommodate for pickleball as well. And I put it on social media when I saw the contract come out, or the caption for it, and immediately just District 4 was exploding. I mean, that's a really big deal to a lot of folks, and with the weather coming. So A, do you know when we might start on that? And B, the lighting, I think I did receive an answer on this somewhere. But we do have lights that have maybe not been activated for a long time, but they'll be fixed and
Okay.
obviously probably put on a hard stop at around 10 o'clock or something like that.
Okay.
I stand in front of you and can honestly say, I don't know the answer to either question, but I'm sure Bill does. And we'll get him up here. And as time goes along, I get deeper and deeper into my job. Hopefully I can answer more questions right off the top.
Understood, sir. Bill, first of all, really good to see you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Really, really good to see you.
I'm glad to be here. So
Yes, sir.
Appreciate the opportunity. So with regard to the first question on construction timing, typically that's around 6 to 8 weeks after council award. Because it usually takes us about 30 days to be able to process contract documents with the contractor. And then usually it's around another month to be able to get pre-construction meetings and other things scheduled. So that's a likely start date. We will get a full project schedule from the contractor at the pre-construction meeting. So that way we'll have a better understanding of their specific times that they'll actually be on site at that time. So
Okay.
we'll be able to give a little more. Sometimes there's some lead times on certain items, and so they will procure those first and then come do the actual construction. So we'll make sure that we're able to communicate some better information as we get it from the contractor.
If you would, please keep me up to date, because there's a lot of buzz about this right now, and it's very exciting. People are just talking a lot about it on the social media, and I'm very happy to see this come to fruition. And thank you all for your hard work for accommodating the pickleball and bringing that up. That's a nice little space in District 4. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you, Chairman.
You good?
If I could, I have been here long enough to know just how good Bill is, how great he is at his job. So appreciate that.
Let me say this, Director Hucker. I know you don't have all the answers right now. Your mere presence leading Department of Public Works has made a difference already. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Could I take the opportunity to do one shout out for Bill and Dennis Malone and our folks in facilities? Can I do that? Just indulge in, if you've
Go ahead.
noticed, you have new ceiling tiles up here. The water damage
Oh,
has been
man.
repaired. So,
That's right. It looks
and that's no
much
easy
nicer.
task because if you can imagine, they have to put scaffolding up from the floor to even get up there. So
That's what I'm talking about.
Thank
That's
you
what I'm
for that.
talking about. Great job. Thank you.
slower than otherwise, but he did it.
Okay, we're gonna end this session. We'll be back at 6 o'clock. Oh, wait a minute. That's not so fast. Not so fast. What? It's Equity Committee. Come on, Councilwoman Donnelly. Sorry about that. Charging that to our hearts. Thank you.
They see how they do me. That's all right. But welcome to Equity and Community Development Committee. Can I get a motion on the minutes? Thank y'all so much. Today we will have two presentations, one on the Eviction Prevention Initiative, as well as a community development update. So we'll start with the Eviction Prevention Initiative. I believe Megan Jones, Community Foundation, as well as Alexa LaBeouf are here to give us a presentation about this initiative that the city has invested dollars into. Hey,
Thank
Megan.
you. My name is Megan Jones. I'm President and CEO of the Community Foundation. And our mission is to transform generosity into lasting change toward a more just and prosperous community where all can thrive and reach their true potential. I want to start by thanking the members of City Council and Mayor Kelly for investing and partnering with us on the Eviction Prevention Initiative. We generally refer to it as EPI, and so you'll hear that throughout the presentation. I especially want to thank Councilwoman Dotley for inviting us to speak to the committee today and share with you the initial results of this program and of the city's investment in it. In a moment, you're going to hear from my colleague, Dwayne Marshall from the Community Foundation, and also Alexa LaBeouf from Cosette Consulting, who will provide additional details about the impact that this program is having. But before we did that, I wanted to take a minute and set the historical context for this program and also explain why the Community Foundation has invested in it. The Eviction Prevention Initiative was born in response to the tremendous disruption caused by COVID-19 and in the height of the pandemic. It provides access to legal counsel and a social worker to those facing eviction. The critical partners in this program include Legal Aid of East Tennessee, which provides legal service, Cosette Consulting, who provides direction, strategic direction, and also evaluation, Habitat for Humanity, who houses the social worker, of course, Community Foundation and our donors, and the City of Chattanooga. The foundation chose to invest in the program because it directly aligns with our priorities to interrupt intergenerational cycles of poverty, to create pathways towards prosperity and economic mobility, and to advance equity to address racial disparities in our community. To date, we, along with our donors, have invested over $200,000 in the program and have committed an additional $100,000. In addition to and alongside the city's very generous investment of last September, we have also secured commitments from the Footprint Foundation of $50,000. Simply put, we feel that by helping families avoid eviction, it makes every part of our community stronger, not only for those who are at risk of losing their homes, but also for the landlords who rely on rent payments. Keeping families in their homes is a critical piece to addressing our community's homelessness problem, allowing families to avoid the devastating social, financial, and economic impacts of eviction, creating opportunities to put them on a path to housing security and stability, and also financial self-sufficiency. And I'm proud to say that it's working. Since we began the program, EPI lawyers and social workers have helped over 400 individuals, including 200 children, avoid eviction. The program has also helped landlords secure over $350,000 in federal funds to help them mitigate the impacts of the pandemic. In addition to the benefits to tenants, and in many cases, landlords, EPI's work reduces the downstream costs of homelessness and crisis care services that are often borne by city taxpayers, police, emergency response, code enforcement, and other city services. This program works humanely with families facing eviction, honestly and fairly with landlords, and collaboratively with numerous partners who are committed to its success. And I'm very proud to include Chattanooga City Council among those partners. Again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today with you and to share the impact this program is having on our community. With that, I'm going to turn it to my colleague, Dwayne Marshall, who is going to tell you more about the impacts of the program.
Good afternoon, Council. Again, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Megan. To talk a little bit about some of the impacts of the Eviction Protection Program, or EPI, briefly, just wanted to start by profiling again the partners that are involved. As Megan said, we are grateful to have in this partnership the City of Chattanooga. The Council approved as part of your fiscal 2021-2022 budget $500,000 to assist us in expanding this program to limit the citizens within our community who are impacted by eviction, housing instability, and homelessness. We also have the partnership of consulting. Our colleague Alexa, who we'll hear from shortly, is assisting us in managing the EPI program on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, working with our various partners, ensuring that those most in need of this program and its services are supported consistently. The Legal Aid of East Tennessee, they have 2 full-time lawyers that are working with our program, specifically focusing on supporting families who are dealing with eviction policies and procedures, as well as housing instability. And we have a full-time social worker at the Habitat for Humanity that's working with these families, pulling back the cover to get an identification of, prior to getting to this eviction scenario, what are some of the issues and challenges that some of the families that are facing, so that we can get to the root cause of some of the challenges that are involved. Our program has 3 core goals, and I'll read them for you briefly. It is to increase housing stability through legal representation, case management, and flexible funding and access to it. Collect and share data to inform the scope of the current eviction crisis and identify policy solutions. And last but not least, increase community education and awareness around housing issues and housing affordability within our community. Since our program has been established, we've assisted well over 200 households, as Megan mentioned, 400 individuals, 200 plus children, from avoiding the process of eviction. We've had over $200,000 from our flexible fund distributed to individual families to assist them in identifying more secure and stable housing. We had over $300,000 from the Tennessee Housing Development Agency, also in support of providing families with this resource to, again, prevent them from dealing with the issues involved with eviction and housing instability. One of the key objectives of this program was not only to give them legal representation, flexible funding to assist them in establishing housing stability going forward, but this is also an opportunity for us to have a broader conversation with the community about eviction. I want to briefly profile some of the individuals who we've been able to support through this program. Prior to getting involved with our EPI effort, 65% of the clients that have been involved in EPI were cost burdened before COVID-19 and before this process. That simply says that before our current pandemic, despite many of them being full-time employed, they were already dealing with housing instability simply due to income challenges. 81% of the clients that have been involved in our program are headed by one single adult in the home. And 60% of them have children in the home. And if you're dealing with 81% of the houses being housed by one single adult, any hiccup in one's income can lead them into a situation or a challenge with housing instability. So we wanted to paint that picture and give you that profile of some of the clients that we've been able to support through this effort. With that being said, I'm going to transition to my colleague Alexa, who's going to profile some of the systemic change that's going to be as a result of this project and this initiative. Alexa.
Hello, Council. My name is Alexa. I'm with Cosette Consulting, which is a small consulting company dedicated to building capacity alongside nonprofit organizations. My role in this project is as project director, which means that I'm supposed to help demonstrate the evaluative impact to work with the partners in this program, build capacity, and demonstrate proof of concept and demonstrate the impact of the work that we're doing. And so I'm just going to leave with a thank you. When this program first began, it was really seen as a crisis response. What can we do in this moment of time, in this one moment of intervention, to allay the burden that the pandemic had on local households? And with the commitment from the city and the city of Chattanooga, we've been able to expand our capacity and our time to think strategically about what this program can tell us about the continuum of housing instability in Chattanooga, Hamilton County, so that we can start to ask system change level questions from our data. And those system level change questions that we will be coming back and reporting to you on regularly are COVID resilience and recovery. So what does this program tell us about the pre-existing vulnerabilities that families face prior to the pandemic? And what can we do moving forward to strengthen those families? The second is affordable and quality housing. For us, we've been building a lot of positive relationships with landlords, and we want to ask what we can do to encourage local homeownership, to encourage local landlords, and try to preserve our existing affordable units. The third is municipal resource use. We are deeply interested in the question of how an eviction diversion or prevention initiative can be cost effective, both for our private and public sectors. So for every family that we can help avoid eviction and provide wraparound supports for, what are all the different sectors that benefit? That can be education, that can be our hospital system, that could be our mental health care system, our homeless services. So we are thinking deeply as we do our work about how we can present the fiscal responsibility of programs like this. The fourth is our court system. How can the process for both tenants and landlords be improved in the long run, whether that be from the moment that you enter a courtroom to the data that we collect and how that's presented out for lessons learned. The fifth system area is just how can we collaborate better together, both at the city and county level. Obviously, we are in city council today, but the court is countywide. We have folks filing evictions all the way out in Saudi Daisy. And so conversations about how we can all collaborate better will be at the forefront of our mind moving forward. But I do want to thank you, and it'll open this up to questions. I'm sure you have many. You have the report, the first quarterly report in front of you. And I look forward to taking them.
All right, Council, you've heard the presentation. Does anyone have any questions? All right, we have a few lights here. You just hit next. Thank you. All right, Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you, Councilwoman Dotley. I appreciate you all coming and talking with us about the eviction prevention initiative. As I look through the report, I wonder if you could share with us a little bit more detail on the court snapshot, the page where we see the numbers of for tenants not represented in court versus for tenants with legal representation. It's noted here that 63% of people who are not represented, there's a default. I'd just like to understand those words and what kind of solutions come out of the negotiation that 76% of tenants with legal representation get.
Okay, so I want to point out that our court snapshot comes primarily from data that we've been collecting by being physically present in court for 2021. So when we're collecting information about default judgments, that's from live data collection in court, following when the docket is read, identifying when a tenant or a landlord is present, and thus recording that. So these numbers are for about a year's worth of court happenings. They are not comprehensive to the past 4 or 5 years, and that's work that we are undertaking. Default judgments mean that someone has not shown up. A decision is rendered by virtue of one party not being present. So for tenants not represented in court, 63% are ending up just not showing up. That's a default judgment against them. 26% are attempting to negotiate an outcome directly with either their landlord or their landlord's representative. And 11% are insisting on going in front of a judge. They want their case heard in front of a judge. And the next report to the second part of your question, Councilwoman Hill will dive into the outcomes of when tenants are attempting to negotiate their own cases. And so I'll have those numbers for you within 2 weeks.
Okay, so what went through my mind when I saw the higher rate of negotiation for tenants with legal representation is that that could potentially be a time when an agreement is reached beyond a quote unquote a simple or a standard eviction that puts a mark on a person's record. Am I thinking correctly?
Yes, and a negotiation gives us the opportunity to make the landlord whole as well. Megan referenced the over $350,000 in THDA money that we've been able to distribute through this program. We didn't distribute it directly, but it became a part of the negotiation to improve outcomes for both tenants and landlords. We do have a good amount of mom and pop landlords here locally and folks who are running homes and also live here. So part of this program and in the negotiation has really been trying to find an outcome that's positive for both sides.
So in finding something that's positive for both sides, if a tenant is evicted, the landlord may just be out that rent?
Or a money judgment could be rendered and then they would need to collect and are not assured that those
Okay.
financial returns.
Okay. So when Megan brought up the downstream costs that a program like this reduces, I mean, one of the things that comes to my mind is the concept of the right to an attorney, that in a criminal case, people have the right to an attorney. If they can't afford one will be provided for them. It's my understanding that doesn't exist when it comes to eviction court. And I wonder, is that one of those things that if we had representation as a municipality available to people, would we see a downstream cost reduction?
I think this veers off into attorney advice territory. There is conversations around what it means to have access to counsel in civil proceedings. How could that address some of the private and public sector costs and help remediate the weight on the system, both for landlords, tenants, the courts, our hospitals, our education system? And there are some wonderful studies out there about what access to counsel can do for saving money. But it is a dialogue and a conversation that is out there about models that localities can use for addressing.
Okay, so not a simple answer, but one that perhaps is worthy of more thought.
Yes, and one that I can will be included in upcoming reports as we know more from a greater sample size from households served, and something
Okay.
we will be looking at.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Hill. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a process question.
Please.
When are you activated into movement? Number one. Number two do landlords contact you in advance of filing? Well, you're smiling like I actually might understand a little bit of this. So do you want to pick it up from there?
So there are two traditional ways that a client could reach us. One is through our intake phone line. We have a dedicated intake phone line. The second is through legal aid. They've called legal aid and they're a qualifying client. But because we have been so present, because we have built relationships and trust, both with social agencies and attorneys in the area and landlords in the area, people are starting to come to us prior to an eviction filing. They are finding us in the hallway. They are asking for support and help. They're saying, I'm having a hard time with THDA. Can you help? I have a tenant. I do not want to evict them. Are there resources? And so due to the length of time that we've been around, we're starting to have more asks that expand outside of our first formatted intake, which is great, but also, again, gets to these system level change questions. Obviously, this is needed. Obviously, this is something that's a value add, and what can we do to really think about growth and capacity in a way that meets the need?
And that's fantastic. I want to thank Councilwoman Hill because she spurred that question when she asked about a permanent mark on someone's record. I'm thinking, well,
Yes,
if you can catch this in advance, what an amazing side benefit this could be to a family. And
Absolutely.
that's what I'm glad to hear that. So thank you.
It definitely, even the name of the program, again, was this moment in time eviction prevention. And I think what we're starting to see is there's probably room for growth around eviction diversion. Diversion, yes. And this is something that the court benefits from as well. Nobody wants over 100 cases on a docket. Time could be better spent, solving other problems in other courtrooms. So if we can find ways to expand into that diversion realm, we'll be able to affect multiple systems.
Great direction. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman Ledford. And we have Chairman Henderson.
Thank you, ma'am. So maybe I missed it, which is quite possible. We talked a lot about maybe the front end of it, but on the back end of it, the gentleman that spoke before you was talking about some of these individuals were a little bit in trouble before COVID started. I mean, they were, in danger of being evicted. And I guess what I'm wondering if there's a disconnect here. Every day we see companies and organizations advertising. In fact, I saw one this morning, starting pay was $24.50. I'm thinking about applying because I don't make that much now. What are we doing to provide even soft job skills training to help these individuals move up so that they can, because many times I think they don't know they can do better. And a couple of years ago, JP Morgan provided a grant and we ran it through the chamber where we provided a class. And I think we had for 30 slots, we had more than 100 applicants that wanted to move up and do better than what they were doing. And many times it's as simple as understanding how to address for an interview or what to say, how to fill out an application and what to do. Understanding that you've got to show up on time and every day. And those soft job skill training actually would help improve, the chances of someone not becoming evicted. So is there when we identify these individuals and we begin to engage them, do we begin then trying to instruct them and help them or get them into classes to where they can move up in their job skills so that now they're not becoming endangered of being evicted?
Thank you for that question. It's something that's come up as I've been looking at the data and the income levels of those most affected as I know more and we have a greater sample size. I think we could do better in that area. I think we could do better at connecting services, at resources, at us who are working in programs, being in touch with one another about the opportunities available. And that will be at the forefront of my mind also in the system level change areas, because I think there's a lot of growth that could occur there. I know that households who get a social worker are given that in-depth level wraparound case management, job opportunity support, but our case manager, a healthy caseload is about 15 people, max 20, to provide the in-depth need. And each case is an average of about 6 months to really help a household either remain stably housed or achieve stable housing. So that for me is a question of capacity. It's a question of how we could expand or improve our services, and then also how we can just coordinate better on the private and public sectors to meet the need.
So right now, we don't have that partnership to where we provide educational training, even if it's like just the soft job skills.
The relationships exist and we can be more intentional about it.
Okay.
Yes, please.
And Chairman Henson, I also too think it was a great question, but I just wanted to also put an underline, because this is also something that's profiled in the report. There's a bigger issue, I think, at play beyond just job skills and workforce training development. One of the challenges that we have by no means is unique to Chattanooga. Unfortunately, our housing costs are increasing at a higher rate than our wages and income is within our community. That is a big issue at play that I think we need to have a bigger conversation about. So as I was profiling the 3 goals of this program, goal number 3 being to have that broader conversation as a community. So while we're trying to address families and individuals who are at the cutting edge of experiencing housing instability, how do we have a broader conversation as a collective community about some of the dynamics that are at play that are causing them to experience that at the beginning? Many of them are extremely hardworking individuals and families, but unfortunately their income and compensation is not keeping up with the cost of housing in our community. Thank you.
All right, you good, Chairman? All right, we have Councilwoman Conrad.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for coming to present this. And I made sure a different perspective for most up here, because I know I've experienced firsthand of being on the court docket, watching my parents become evicted. And, you know, I'm only 1 paycheck away. And there was a time even serving on council where I lived off my credit cards and could have been evicted. So I got a different perspective. And I also speak from the perspective of being that individual who, you know, had to navigate through systems then to, you know, even be able to afford housing and to try to figure out, you know, where those resources would come from to prevent me from being evicted. Even when I lived in the West Side and rent was only $25 at that time, but having to take care of kids, trying to go to school and, you know, trying to get in a better space. So I view things a little differently from maybe my colleagues. And I'm not the only one who's experienced it, but I'm more boisterous and honest and transparent about it, because those are the conversations that we need to hear about, because people think because we sit on this dais that we didn't have a hard experience. And when we get information as such, we view it from a different lens. So I'm grateful that you all are digging into this and want to get to the root cause, because at any given moment, any of us can be at the heels of the court of mercy to say what resources are available. It could be a foreclosure. It could be someone got addicted to drugs, which was the case in my family. It was drug addiction. My mother was a nurse by trade and my dad was a military veteran. But because of that addiction, we became homeless. And but it's a lot. Now, speaking from that perspective, I'm more interested in hearing about, you know, the services that will be afforded to people that are caught in the cycle of the welfare system, that are, you know, in the housing developments, because those are the phone calls that I receive. Those are the people that live in my district or outside of my district that call me and ask for help. And now the rent has went from $25 to $50. And it could be simply a mismanagement of their money. But what are you, and I know from a perspective of people that are, you know, have jobs or they in this role and, you know, that kind of stuff. But these individuals, they, you know, childcare, and they get, you would think, all the assistance that they could get by being on that system, but they're still getting evicted. So is there anything that's gonna address that?
Well, I think the way that I answer that question, first of all, Councilwoman Conrad, thank you so much for sharing your powerful testimony with us. Really appreciate that. The way that I'll address that is, as part of this program, we obviously have 5 core partners, including our organizations, the Community Foundation. But as an organization, we are always interested in identifying ways in which we can work with our local ecosystem to connect our individuals and families who are in need with the support services that can help them improve their housing situation or housing outcomes. So, and that may extend beyond the current partners involved. So we are always looking to, as we become aware of those scenarios, how we can lean in and help.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. Another thing that I'll add to that I want to make sure that I profiled as part of our eviction protection initiative, something that we're very proud of, and we're learning more about it week by week, month by month. We're also a part of a national cohort through the National League of Cities. They have an eviction protection learning lab. Again, this situation is by no means unique to Chattanooga and our region. So that space is an opportunity for us to connect with other cities and communities around the country, learn about their journey, learn about some of their best practices, learn about some of their solutions, et cetera, in an effort to possibly replicate some of those practices and policies here if they're not already currently in place.
Thank you. You good, Councilwoman Conrad? Okay. Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you. You all are coming to recognize that housing affordability is one of my passion points. So just wanted to shed a little more light, Councilman Henderson, on your question. It was brought up that a large number of people are housing burdened, which doesn't necessarily mean they're in trouble. It means that they're spending what percentage or more? 40% or more?
I think, yeah.
30% or more
of their income.
Of their income on housing. So they're not in trouble until they are in trouble. I think about a lot of systems that are built that allow us to find ourselves or place an expectation of burden on us. For example, when I did the FAFSA, the federal government told me my expected family contribution for college was 52% of my family's annual income. Were I to say, thanks guys, it's a great idea, I would put forth 52% of my family's annual income and be what I would consider to be education burden. And so when we think about being housing burdened, and your point then about how home costs and rent costs have gone up so rapidly compared to our housing stock cost, that's where I think we as a city council and as a administration of the mayor have to take on the responsibility of looking at systemically what are the levers that we can pull to encourage housing variety, for example. You know, in my district, everything's gone to single family homes and I'm losing duplexes and quadplexes day to day. Anything that's there is gone and turning into a 5,000 square foot home. It's entirely possible the person in that home is housing burdened, but they want to be near downtown. They want to be near the school. They want to be, you know, all those things. If I, as a city council person, advocate for different types of housing forms, for example, within my district or across the city, that might provide more options for all different types of families to live in my district at multiple price points. Another thing, I agree with you wholeheartedly about where does job training come in to help people upskill? And in fact, we have on our agenda that approval of payments related to a grant that is all about upskilling. That $450 some thousand in hopes that we'll get what, a $25 million grant, I think. And those are TAMP funds from the state. So you all come to talk to us about eviction. And my hope would be that in the next 3 years under the Kelly administration, that we as a city are able to build a team that we know everybody on that team is firing on all cylinders to do their job, that EPI is the go-to about eviction prevention. You know it backward and forward. If somebody's got an eviction question, they ask you guys. If somebody needs job upskilling, that there's a partner on the team that knows upskilling backward and forward and granted, we're still trying to crack those nuts, right? All around the nation, all around the world, we're
Sure.
trying to crack some really hard nuts.
Sure.
But that as a council, Chairman Henderson would know this is the group that's doing that. And furthermore, that they talk to each other and work together, that they're not duplicating services. Like, frankly, I have a feeling if Chip dug into your books, he'd be kind of annoyed if he's like, good grief, here's one more, upskill, soft skill guy. And then this dude's over here asking me for soft skill money. Am I right? Like, you want them to work together. I would love to get to a point as a council person to have confidence in our choices for where we allot our money. And frankly, not just we as a city, but we as a community, right? Because
Sure.
there's a huge space for nonprofit that the government does not need to step into. But that Councilwoman Dotley, if you will continue to bring us these education sessions so that we know who's our team, and how do we count on them, and what can we expect from them, and what are our gaps on our team, so that we can work on those. Because, if we ask the next folks, hey, what are you doing about teen violence? And they're like, but we're the upskilling people. We're not the get guns away from kids people. If we want everybody to do everything, probably nobody's going to do any of it very well.
Right.
But if everybody's doing their job terrifically and they all work together, then we could really get something accomplished. So I thank you for your focused effort. And I hear what my colleague is saying. And I'll tell you what, this affordable housing stuff and the homelessness, it's so complicated. If we don't approach it that way in a collaborative way, we're never going to get anything done.
Agreed.
Never. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a low end to end on. We can do it.
We can. We will. Thank you.
All right. You good, Councilwoman Hill? All right. Any other questions, council? All right. Thank y'all so much for your presentation. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Dotley. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. All right, council. We just have one more presentation from our buddies in community development. So, Tony. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of council. We're happy to come before you and give you a brief update on what's going on in the Department of Community Development. I will add, as we finish the presentation from the prior group, that our department, we consider ourselves that link that try to collaborate with the various components that are needed to make these things happen. So we will always position ourselves to be a resource to assist in any manner possible. We have a very short slide presentation. Last time I came before council, we were in the early moments of this administration, and I provided you some of the directions that we were heading in. One being is trying to identify our leadership team for our department. And I'm pleased to say, excluding one particular division, we have been successful in identifying our leadership team. And like to start off with one indicating the divisions of community development are code enforcement, our community centers, our neighborhood services division, and our Office of Family Empowerment. Also to include our administration and finance team. I'd like to go ahead and introduce to you our leadership team. If you would go to the next slide, I appreciate it. And the next slide, please. Introducing our leadership team. He's not a stranger to many of you, but those who are new to the council may not be as familiar with him. Serving as our Deputy Administrator for the Department of Community Development is Mr. Erskine Oglesby Jr. Our Chief Code Enforcement Officer is leading our code enforcement team is Ms. Donna Castile. We have 2 new positions that have been added to our department, and they are community center directors, and they are Mr. Ty Moore and Mr. Chris Brown. As I indicated, there is 1 position that we have yet to fill. We're in the process of scheduling interviews for our neighborhood services manager. And Ms. Rachel Howard is the director of the Office of Family Empowerment. And we have Ms. Carol Hunter, who serves as the director of our operations and performance for the department. And Ms. Stacy Johnson leads our finance team for the entire department. And as we go into the next slides, I'm asking each of our division heads to come before you and share some updates with you. And we'll start with code enforcement with Ms. Donna Castile.
So far this fiscal year, code enforcement has brought 8,521 properties into compliance. We have found 8,944 violations, and we have demolished 17 structures that were completed by the city. 4 additional structures were completed by property owners after we received demolition orders. So some of the things that we're trying to focus on, of course, are providing education to our citizens and preserving neighborhoods. Systematic inspections provide education and preserve neighborhoods. Inspectors post signs informing residents that neighborhood inspections for housing, litter, overgrowth, and inoperable vehicle violations will take place the following week. After 1 full week, the neighborhood is re-inspected. At that time, courtesy notices are mailed to anyone who still has violations. Inspectors have performed 117 systematic inspections since November 1st. Neighborhood leaders recommended some of the areas that were inspected. Notice of violation tags are attached to mailboxes to make residents aware of their violations faster. And the tags list all of the common code enforcement violations and check boxes for those that are in violation at that particular address. We also have informational brochures that we use at neighborhood association meetings, provide to landlords, and also sometimes add to mailings as needed. Courtesy notes are being left at addresses for first-time violators of people who have not called 311 for a pickup. And of course, we are always eager to attend neighborhood association meetings and share information about code enforcement. To help preserve neighborhoods, we have focused on boarded structures this year. So starting in October, 1 inspector was assigned to only inspect houses that have been boarded for many years to pursue demolitions or encourage owners to rehab. He opened cases on 62 properties. So far, 21 are being renovated. 5 owners signed demolition consent forms. 14 have demolition orders. 7 are in demolition court, and 15 are awaiting warrants to enter the properties. This temporary assignment will end in April, but will be implemented year-round if additional inspectors are approved in our budget. Dangerous properties are now being mapped with overlays of fire and police calls, and that helps codes focus on the most dangerous properties. CFD notifies codes of fires, and inspectors go out right away to see if the structures are open and need to be secured. So we board those immediately using our emergency boarding process. Derelict commercial properties are now being inspected by code enforcement. Starting October 20th, all inspectors were asked to inspect commercial properties in their assigned areas and pursue compliance for those in poor condition. 107 cases were opened. 38 have been brought into compliance. 11 are in the abatement or demolition process, and the rest are in court. We have been able to prosecute 2 illegal dumping cases in conjunction with CPD, who prosecuted them as aggravated criminal littering. And we are also pursuing faster abatements by using 2 vendors for overgrowth abatement. So that should really help us a lot this spring, especially.
Thank you. If you give me
Thank you.
just a second, Donna.
Yes,
I
any
believe
questions?
Yes, Councilman
Okay.
Ledford. Give me just a second. Okay, go ahead, Councilman Ledford.
I'm not going to pass up the opportunity to talk to Chief of Code Enforcement, that's for sure. Surprised this board's not lit up like a Christmas tree. Donna, talk to me a little bit about sign ordinance enforcement.
Okay, that is more related to zoning, and code enforcement doesn't really handle sign enforcement. As far as bandit signs and things like that, illegal signs that people are putting out in neighborhoods or along Brainerd Road, we do go out and pick those signs up. And if we can find out who is putting them out, we'll call the numbers and we'll try to put a stop to it in that way as well. But other types of signs,
And the reason I'm bringing it, because Randy's working with me on this one, but so in District 4, we have advertisement for neighborhoods that are being built in the county. And individuals come and they put up giant 8-foot concreted into the ground, come to tour our facilities. And I even reached out to myself, the owner of the company, large developer in Douglasville, Georgia, and he doesn't even know who puts them out. So here we are 3 weeks later with all these giant 8-foot by 4-foot signs cemented into the ground all over District 4, and just shrugging our shoulders. Outside of, what are we? It's frustrating because I'm getting the calls, and I tell people, well, we have a code enforcement division, and they're like, okay, question mark.
Okay, so there again, if there are signs that we can physically remove ourselves, we will take those down. If they're concreted in, that would probably be more of a Randy Ridge zoning type issue where you would take them to court.
Yeah.
Do you know the name of the construction company? I can see if I can get them in court.
I'll talk with you offline for fairness to the company. But I'm just, when people call us and they hear the word enforcement, I just, you've heard this, council. We're looking for lots of enforcement.
Yes.
And that one's very frustrating because it's just like the overall or overarching philosophy is just do what you want. If we can handle it, we will. If not, don't worry about it. And that's the feeling. I'm not saying that's true. That's the feeling people get when they reach out to us and they see something. And it encourages that behavior. I mean, we have a city sign ordinance on political signs. I've already brought this up before the election. I knew it was going to happen. They're everywhere. There's tons of them out there that are totally illegal.
Oh.
They're in right-of-ways, they're in roundabouts. I mean, that specifically says not to do that, but.
Oh, okay, and we can remove those.
Well.
We will be glad to remove those. We'll get
I'm
on
just
it.
saying, no,
Yes.
It's probably a little late now and they're already out there, but
Well,
enforcement's a big,
okay.
if people just want the laws enforced.
Yes.
And.
Oh, okay. And
Yeah.
and of course, code enforcement primarily enforces existing structure violations, litter, overgrowth, and inoperable vehicles on private property. We have, just recently adopted some of the zoning activities as far as removing the signs that people just go and stick in the ground, like the little bandit signs. We do pick those up. We take them off of posts and things like that. And then we are also now handling like private auto mechanics in residential areas, basically shade tree mechanics, that kind of thing. As far as larger types of of signs that need a sign permit, that would actually go through zoning, but I'll be happy to get in touch with this contractor and see what I can do to address this through court. And we will be happy to remove political signs.
I'm not, don't misunderstand me. I'm not up here in the middle of a campaign season. telling
Okay.
you- I'm just drawing, I'm using
Mhm.
it as an example because I
Okay.
see this every campaign season. I see this in every district. But yeah, no, let's be on the record here. I'm not advocating for signs to be removed during a
Okay.
campaign season. What I'm saying is look at the example. And when citizens come to us and they're asking us to enforce the laws that are on the books,
Mhm.
that's where we just kind of shrug our shoulders and go, yeah, I guess it's okay. And it's not okay, but we allow it to be okay. And it's just some food for thought.
Okay, I understand. And we do proactively enforce, violations that we see. We have not enforced campaign sign rules. We have not had any complaints about them. If someone complained to us previously, we would have followed up on that and removed any signs that were requested. And we do remove bandit signs whenever people tell us, hey, we've got this problem in this area. We do go take care of that.
So on that note, and I'll let you go after this, I promise. Just had to get this off my chest. I didn't know
Okay.
you were coming in today, so I apologize. But in the packet that everyone receives when they run for office, all of us, it has a list of city ordinance in it. Should we not provide that anymore?
No, I think that it would be good to continue to provide that. Yes, I do. And as I say, we do proactively enforce. We had not enforced anything related to campaign signs. Signs have not really been a code enforcement. I guess something that we have that previously was something that was more a zoning issue. Zoning has handed a few things off to us related to the small signage. So there again, we're glad to follow up on that. We stay incredibly busy dealing with existing housing issues, litter and overgrowth and inoperable vehicles, mostly in residential areas. Then, of course, we recently took on commercial properties as well, as far as existing commercial buildings. So we're running as fast as we can and doing what we can. We do address complaints that we receive first. So if we get anything related to those types of requests, we're more than happy to do it.
Okay. Just like I said, for the note, I'm not asking you to take any action on that. I'm just using that as an example.
Okay, got it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Ledford. We have several of you all in the queue. So Donna, you are popular today. And I know that you all have more presentations, so we'll try to breeze through these.
Okay.
Councilman Hester.
Donna, that's not so fast. You mentioned the shade tree mechanics.
Yes,
I know
sir.
Folks in Brainerd very concerned about that. How do you go about enforcing that?
Okay, it's a little bit challenging. If we receive a complaint or if someone has noticed or if an inspector has noticed something, we try to initially address it based on the inoperable vehicle code. So if we see vehicles that appear to be inoperable on the property, then we send them a notice about that. And then other than that, it's very difficult to prove because either the person who is doing the mechanic work or one of their customers has to admit to us that that's what's taking place. So otherwise, we just approach it from the inoperable vehicle angle.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
All right, you good, Councilman Hester? All right, Councilwoman Burrs.
This isn't for you, Donna. It's more for Tony. Tony, as I'm sitting here listening, and the council, it goes on and on about enforcement. Sometimes it's confusing when you have code enforcement and then zoning. It's all code. All of it's in the law. So I think this is a historical division, but what I'm trying to figure out is in the big enforcement in the sky thing, sometimes people get confused when you call something code enforcement and then it goes to zoning enforcement, which is code enforcement. Might we deal a little bit with semantics so that people don't get quite so confused? All of it's enforcement. And sometimes, whether it's short-term vacation rentals, whether it's zoning, whether it's what is termed code enforcement, it's all code enforcement. And so might we do some thinking? This is just a sidebar about how we term these things. Oftentimes, and I'm guilty of it too, we just want enforcement of laws we've passed.
Agreed.
That's it.
Agreed.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
and that's code. And it seems to get handed back and forth when it should be,
Seamless.
yeah, just do it.
Yeah. We're going to be looking at these things as I indicated earlier, the new structure of the department, with it being community focused. We will be collaborating with all the departments and try to make the necessary changes that will make things more simplistic, where our citizens will understand how things work. And it doesn't matter if it's a signage issue. If it's called into us, we're going to pull it in as if I'm going to go out myself and take care of it and ensure that it's done, as well as have more educational sessions throughout the community to make them very much aware, and have our resident experts be a part of that dialogue throughout the city as we look at various ways of educating our citizens on what the codes are and what areas they are more specific and germane to, and try to get them to understand. And we're looking at that. We're excited about the re-engagements we're about to get into, since we are thinking outside of how we live and function with the pandemic. And so we will be doing a lot of that. Education is one of the key areas that we're going to be focusing on for all of the code-related concerns that we have, as well as the partnering and collaborations that we'll be doing with all our departments.
So just a thought. Since it's all code enforcement, it's not citizens, it's me.
Oh, you'd be
and I'm sure
surprised.
some of my
You'd be
colleagues,
surprised.
But the thing is that it's all code enforcement. So if people called in code enforcement to you and internally, see, I think maybe we keep trying to re-educate citizens to a system that's an anachronism. We need to think, government needs to think about changing.
Right.
And we should be very accessible and not have to educate these folks out here that don't understand. They're capable of understanding. It's that I think we're not clear.
Right.
And I don't think they need educating so much as we have one code enforcement, and internally you all parcel it out.
And I agree with you. Internally, we will be doing that, but we also feel that there's a great need of sharing information with our citizens.
That's cool.
And so, yes, we will still be looking at ways of educating our citizens, because the knowledge that we've provided to citizens in the past related to our enforcement of quality of life codes has been extremely helpful, because that has strengthened the neighborhoods, and they know what to look for. They know how to avoid some of these impediments on their own properties as well as their neighbors. So I think it will take both.
Yeah, I love that. It's just that they're not particularly ignorant because they don't know which phone call to make.
Right.
It's
And I would
maybe
dare,
we need
I would
to
dare not even utilize that as a reason to our citizens. When they make the call, it's up to us to
Yeah.
triage it and send it where it needs to be, so it can be addressed.
Thank you so much.
No problem, no problem.
All right, you good, Councilwoman Burrs? All right, Councilwoman Conrad, and then we'll hear from our city attorney, and then we'll turn it back over to you, Tom.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Donna, for your presentation. And I was gonna say something about that shade tree mechanics. I was gonna say insert, do not mess with the one that live on the corner from me. Because the way them oil changes set up the price and, trying to get all that stuff, leave my guy alone. And then, listen, secondly, I'll say that, those signs are everywhere except for my district. So in case, although Leffler say he don't want you to remove them, but in case you do, I'm requesting that you saturate my area with the county mayor signs, the district attorney signs, put them in District 9. Yeah, so we can know who's running. And then, but on the other end, I want to thank Ty, because he was one that we worked with our neighborhood association, from working in neighborhood services to code enforcement. And I thank you for taking the time to work with our community to help educate us on, different code violations, and not only just educating us about it, but you personally would allow us to walk with you to look and see how it looked. So, and it gave our seniors a voice. It elevate their advocacy, and I really appreciate you for doing that. Now that you're on the other side, now we get to harass you even more. So I really appreciate you. Now, I will say this, a disclaimer, and I didn't make that statement about the signs for anyone to go to try to say, oh, she's a Republican, she says put these signs in her district. That's the furthest thing from the truth. I'm being comical about it, but what I do mean is that people need to understand and see who's running. No matter what political party that you identify with, you need to understand and educate yourself on who's running for those seats, because no matter what political affiliation you are, you're going to represent the people if you get elected.
All right, you good, Councilwoman Conrad? All right, Phil, did you have some comments for us?
Just briefly, I just wanted to make sure Donna and her folks are really helpful in a lot of the stuff that we do with them back and forth. And y'all need to be aware that there's been a code change here in March of 2019. And before March of 2019, Donna and her folks were dealing with housing. It was under the H's in your city code. And that's the reason that Chapter 21 looks out of place when it says property management now. But up until that point in time, they were just dealing with housing issues. And we are currently dealing with a lot of issues that are commercial buildings and commercial properties that are in disrepair. And we've been in court with her folks here for about 4 hours last Friday, I believe it was, in court trying to resolve issues on dilapidated buildings. So they're getting into a lot of those issues and trying to help you. And then the zoning aspects are typically in a public works setting. So that's one reason there's been a disconnect back and forth a little bit in that regard. And the public works inspectors have handled that. So they'll try to work together as much as they can in that regard. And that's why there's been some disconnect.
All right. Thank you so much. Tony, you can go ahead and finish up your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from our community centers, providing you an update. And we ask that our directors of community centers present to you. That would be Mr. Tyre Moore and Chris Brown.
How are you, Council?
Good. How are you?
Over the past couple of months, our administration has worked to establish the mayor's plan to transition our community centers from recreation to community. As we work through this transition, it's imperative that our staff understand that recreation is still a vital part of what we do, but that we are working to really transition to more of a community-centric atmosphere. As far as staffing, with proper staffing levels, our community centers can make sure that the needs of the communities are met and proper oversight of programs is delivered to a high degree. Our team is active in filling our vacancies in our division. And as we work to fill these positions, our team is establishing an extensive staffing plan to evaluate the workforce at each location and to tailor a plan that will allocate the resources in the appropriate areas. One thing I wanted to highlight today is our plan to do staff development. So we have a couple of goals, and I just want to read some of those off to you. One is attract great employees, improve employee performance, increase employee engagement, train future leaders, and boost employee job satisfaction. Transitioning to community health. As we look to reopen our community centers, our team has worked closely with the Office of Community Health to develop safe methods as we restart our operations. In partnership with the Office of Community Health, we have outlined nurse navigators in touchdown locations across the city. As we move toward the post-pandemic era, it's essential that we have these health professionals in our community centers and accessible to all areas of the city. Next in our partnership, we look to have health education classes, mental health and fairs, and also expansion of our vaccination sites. Over the past couple of months, our division has received several requests from outside organizations to partner with our community centers. We have worked with our managers to identify the needs of various community centers and how these services and partners can assist with quality programming. We've also worked in generating an inventory of our programming. This catalog is to assist in the overall blueprint of our programmatic functions over the past couple of years. As we look at generating community-centric programming, it's imperative that we understand the demographics of the past program and how it's worked in the area. As we look to implement the community advisory committees, these reports serve a vital purpose. And finally, I want to speak a little bit about our program tutors and education. As an essential part of our program initiative lies with our relationship with education. Each of our centers has an assigned program tutor to assist youth and young adults with homework and other educational needs. Again, I just want to thank you all. And next, I'll introduce Ty, and he'll finish up our community centers presentation.
Well, good afternoon. I want to talk about our Community Advisory Committee. Chris and myself have been working really hard at crafting our bylaws and operation for the Community Advisory Committee group that will be working with our community centers. As part of the Mayor Kelly's 100-day plan, these committees' goals will be to ensure community centers craft ideas and programs that best serve our surrounding neighborhoods. Summer program activities. We are real excited to roll out this year summer program for that will be going into 12 community centers throughout the city. Our summer program is very essential because it will offer a structured opportunity for children to grow, learn, and have a safe environment while school is out. Kids has missed out on many of these opportunities due to the COVID-19 pandemic. But with the help of the Office of Community Health and our staff, we have crafted a safe and fulfilling camp for this year. Dates and costs. Camp will start June the 6th and will run through August the 5th. The cost per child is $25. We will be offering programs such as sports, basketball, football. We will have education pieces as well as art, technologies. And this will be for kids ages 6 to 12. We will be providing lunch, which will be free, and we will be partnering with the help of the YMCA. We have 14 slots that need to be filled for summer camp hires. And Chris and myself are definitely working hard at filling those slots because we need people, I mean, like yesterday. And that concludes our part.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
One additional part as it relates to our activities, our team is currently working to finalize programming as it relates to our teens. and not to forget our senior population as well. Programming continues to be looked at for our existing sites that are focused on our seniors, and we will be expanding that in the weeks to come. At this time, we'll move on to our Neighborhood Services Division, and reporting out for that division will be Mr. Erskine Oglesby.
I never thought I'd see this.
Welcome, welcome.
Y'all know everything I've been on this call. This probably as nervous I've ever been in this room. Okay, so I'm here to just sort of give you an update on where we are with neighborhood services. As Tony mentioned when we first started this presentation, is we are getting ready to start interviewing for a neighborhood services manager. So essentially, I'm filling that interim role gladly, and we got some more staff in place. Neighborhood services, from our perspective, is about building strong neighborhoods from the inside, because that's what I've heard is neighborhoods need support and they need tools to be successful. And by building the neighborhoods from the inside, it leverages what can be done outside. We are a firm believer that when you build neighborhoods from the inside out and then you start connecting the neighborhood, which is what we've heard over the past couple of months, you develop a strong city. And that's what neighborhood service is going to be committed to. We're going to do this by collaboration. So we'll be getting to that in a minute. But as you've heard from code enforcement and community centers, that's what we do. We sort of the linchpin to bring these things together. We're going to begin to start re-engaging with live neighborhood association meeting. Our team has really been clamoring to get back out there, and now we're seeing that the neighborhood association wants to become more engaged, and we're committed to start doing that like right now. And what we're doing is taking an inventory of our neighborhood associations, because one thing that we're finding out is there's a transition of leaderships, and many of our neighborhoods have had the same leaders since the beginning of time, so to speak. So we're going to start looking at that and providing resources to make that happen. Councilwoman Dotley and I had an extensive conversation recently on how best to make that happen. So that's going to be a focus. And then taking an inventory of active versus non-active neighborhood associations. So those neighborhood associations that are currently inactive or not as engaged, we're going to be focused on how to make that happen, because we're starting to get calls about new associations want to get started. And we want to make sure that we provide them with the tools and the knowledge and the resources to make that happen. And it's going to be strategic and it's going to be planned out so it begins to be sustainable over time. We're going to revamp what has been known as the Neighborhood Roundtable. And that's what we're going to be doing every month. And we're going to be partnering with council to make sure that happens, because there's multiple neighborhood associations in each council district. So we're going to start making sure that we start engaging it in a different council every month to make sure that we're providing the tools. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about is we're going to be engaging our city staff. So where 1 month we'll have public works talking in one district, and it's going to really be predicated on what the districts say their immediate need are. So we'll be doing parks and outdoors, 311, police and fire, which is going to be a heavy collaboration that we're going to be having, and that's with the neighborhood roundtables. One team member came up with the neighborhood walk and talk, and that too is going to be another monthly endeavor, because we believe that consistency starts when you keep doing things over and over. And what the neighborhood walk and talk is going to be, once again, it's going to be coordinated with our council person in that particular district to be a part of that walk. And it could potentially include police and fire, public works. It's going to involve many of our city departments to make sure that they're connecting with neighborhoods where they are at their home, on their streets. So we got a twofold method of making sure we in constant communication with the neighborhood roundtable and with the neighborhood walk and talk. And that's something that our neighborhood services team is real excited about. And it actually came from staff development tools that we're using, where they start talking with neighborhood groups in other cities. And one thing that has happened is our neighborhood services team brought that initiative on themselves, where they're constantly calling other neighborhood groups in other cities and saying, hey, how are you doing? We attended a Zoom meeting about 2 weeks ago with the Norfolk, Virginia group. And it was very, very informative. And one thing that we really determined, and they have a much larger budget, a much larger staff. That's okay. We work with what we got. But we found out that we were doing some really innovative things here in the city that they was like, wow, we never thought of that. So it was a cross sharing of information that's probably going to continue quarterly. So we're making sure that, not only are we getting information internally, but we're also looking at our partners. And that's actually part of our staff development piece, where we're developing leaders within our department, so that when it comes time for opportunities within the city or outside the city, we are letting them know that we care about the maturation of how they grow professionally and personally. Moving forward, it's not going to be called Neighborhood University, but it's a form of Neighborhood University. And that's where annually we will come together with our neighborhoods in a big event, where once again, we'll be offering educational tools and group discussions and breakout sessions that will focus on how we grow neighborhoods and how we build leaders in our neighborhoods. So we're real excited about that piece, because I know at one point I participated in one as a trainer, and it's really, really enlightening to see the interaction between our neighborhoods. One great phenomenal thing about Neighborhood University, it brings all our neighborhoods in one space. So you get to sort of know each other and start connecting with each other, and not be so in a silo. Because if we're going to continue with one Chattanooga and continue to grow our cities, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have to connect. We're going to have to respect and value what we do in our communities. But if we're going to be one Chattanooga, one city, we got to be able to work together to make sure we grow, and to share those things like code enforcement and other things, that blight reduction, where we can kind of partner with each other, neighborhood associations. We're also going to be looking at the mapping of our neighborhood association with neighborhood associations, one new neighborhood association starting to form. Then, we're going to have to make sure that, the maps are really defined and straight, and that there's no conflict when it comes time to territory. And that's going to be another exciting thing. Neighborhood services is really a collaborative department, because a lot of the things we discuss comes through the neighborhood associations and our team who's out there each and every day connecting with these neighborhood associations. And one thing Tony has alluded to is we want to be a conduit that when a constituent called neighborhood association and has a need or a concern, we don't just want to pass them off, but we want to be able to say, this is who you need to connect to. And we will log that in and have some follow-up on that to make sure that they're not being thrown out there when a complaint or when a concern is filed. So that actually came from our neighborhood group. And I say it comes from our neighborhood groups because, we can only do so much at a certain level. It's the people on the ground that really makes things happen. And Tony and I value, each and every division within neighborhood association because of what they bring to the table. Like some of the collaboration, like with the blight reduction educational program that we're going to do with code enforcement. One thing that we want to make sure that what we're communicating is not punitive in nature, but it's about education and letting people know what is and what is not, and what is true and what is not is true, and what is fake and what is not is fake. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is partnering with the educational programs. We're going to be partnering with Scenic City Beauties in neighborhood cleanup programs. There's already a number of programs scheduled, but what we want to do is make it where it's consistent and people know what's happening with our city. This coming April the 23rd is Earth Day, and I know that the mayor's staff is looking at a collaborative where we're going to be in several neighborhoods cleaning up our city. That's been one of the concerns that we've had for quite some time, is the cleanliness of our city. And we in neighborhood services and community development believe that if we can come up with a structured, more consistent, more collaborative effort to work on cleaning up our city, then that's going to get us in the right direction. So we're going to be focusing real heavy with our partners in Public Works and Outdoor Chattanooga and police and fire to make sure that happens, so we can clean up our city. And I'm not talking about the crime aspect of it, but just from being a neat, clean, and truly beautiful outdoor city. How can you be the best outdoor city in America when you have some concerns with cleanliness, like trash and litter and some other tires and things like that? We're going to be partnering with the Chattanooga Police Department with neighborhood safety initiatives to make sure that the neighborhoods know what their resources are, and to create a relationship that's not so adversarial. And that's going to be done through our neighborhood association in partnership with our police department. We're going to be partnering with the Chattanooga Fire Department with home safety awareness programs. And they have a couple of guys that understand are in that house right now. So we're going to be partnering with them as far as making sure that our citizens know about home safety as it relates to fire. Because recently we've had a number of house fires in our city, and some of them has been pretty, don't want to say deadly, but you got to call things what they are, but they have been pretty deadly, and they're getting more consistent. So we believe that by partnering with the fire department, public safety in general, and getting the education components out there, that would help our city a lot also. Lastly, we want to partner with Outdoor Chattanooga as far as resources is concerned and activities. Our team in neighborhood services wanted to start doing like some movies in the park this summer under the stars. So we want to go into various parks in the district through neighborhood services to show movies and have activities that bring people together, to be a little different in how we look at our parks and outdoor spaces in our neighborhoods. And we can only do that with the great partnerships we're going to have with Outdoor Chattanooga. They want to start back bringing festivals, neighborhood festivals, to our communities. That's one of the things in cities that I have lived in, is those festivals, those cultural festivals really bring people together. And as I've said repeatedly, and I'll continue to do this, we got to do things to connect our communities. There's been festivals in the past that I participated in where I have come from my part of town to this part of town, and I've got to know citizens in that part of town. And it helped create a synergy within our city that will go along as far as helping solving some of the really challenging things we have on how we interact together as a people. That's pretty much it for neighborhood services. That's just a little snippet of what our team have in plan for the future as far as it relates to neighborhood services, as a collaborator, as a convener of everything that goes in our city. Because I encourage our partners with the city is whenever there's a need for some sort of community gathering to bring awareness or to bring information about development, about new initiatives, then your neighborhood services is the first stop in making that happen, because they know the neighborhood association, they know the president, they know how to make things happen. And I'm really proud of the fact that our team does that. So we are a resource to the city. We are a collaborator. And I thank Councilwoman Dottley for the opportunity to present to her committee today. And I'll ask if there's any questions. And if they are, call me and I'll return your call tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Erskine. We
No,
appreciate
do you have any questions?
do you have any more slides? We're gonna finish the presentation, then we'll come back around to any questions at the end.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. That's it for my presentation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll finalize everything with our final division, the Office of Family Empowerment, with a highlight on one of the programs that we came before council to discuss early on. And Ms. Rachel Howard, followed by Ms. Carol Hunter.
Good afternoon, y'all.
Good afternoon.
It's good to see y'all. And forgive my voice, the pollen has not, I mean, yay spring, but the pollen it's not a joke. So through the transition, y'all know we've been challenged with staffing throughout the pandemic. I had several staff that had to go on FMLA for different reasons. Most of them were related to family illness, having to become caregivers for elderly parents in many cases. Some of that turned into permanent decisions. So we've had some turnover. We've been really fortunate. We just got a really good new family support specialist who's working with our team and is getting up to speed very quickly. And we are working on filling the rest of our vacancies now. So households served year to date, I will point out we're on a federal fiscal year in OFE. So this is from October 1st through about mid-March. So far, we've served over 1,800 households in LIHEAP. That's a little over 300 households a month. And in CSBG rent and mortgage, we've done 83 so far for a little over $91,000. That I expect to increase significantly now that we have staff to actually do that work. We've had 1.5 people doing that work for the entire program year. So now that we have a team, I expect that to pick up quite a bit. Alexa mentioned earlier, or one of them mentioned earlier, our collaboration with National League of Cities. I applied for a technical assistance grant from them, and we were one of 5 cities selected to participate, which is a huge honor. Most of what we've been working on with them is pulling data from our side, and then Alexa has provided some data from their side about evictions. And they're working on a couple of things for us. One of them is a data visualization that's going to show us where evictions are happening in our community and then where we have provided assistance. So we can see where the gaps are and where we need to step in and do some outreach and intervene in some other parts of the community that we may not be reaching right now. The other part of that is some tools and strategies around marketing our program so that when we figure out where we need to go, we have the approach that we need to get the word out and to reach the people that live in those neighborhoods. Part of our strategic plan, we have been addressing barriers that impact access to our programs. So just making our applications simpler, minimizing documentation requirements as much as we can, making our forms easier to understand. And then another piece of that is we have created a navigation team. And so the navigation team is now your first point of contact when you contact our office. And as you apply for assistance, you have a navigator that walks you through that process, helps you collect the documentation that you need, and helps you understand what is needed. So by the time that case gets handed to a family support specialist, they're ready to go with it and just provide the assistance. So it's made the process a lot faster and a lot more comfortable for our applicants. As part of that, also, we are convening a customer advisory panel that is going to help us look at our processes, look at our forms, look at the way we provide service, give us feedback on their experiences with us, because I think lived experience is the most valuable experience when it comes to informing the work that we do. And help us to streamline that stuff and get approval from the state on the things that we need to get approval on that we can't change immediately. And our other exciting thing is creating our OFE advisory board. We're going to have our own board, which is great. I've been working with Ronald and Harolda to make sure that we are in compliance with the legislation that we have to follow and our federal guidelines around what a CSBG board has to look like. And we're excited to get that in place really soon. Our shining star right now is our impact program. This is our economic mobility initiative. It's funded by CSBG Cares. We partnered with Carol Hunter, who is our director of operations, to help us get this off the ground because it was going to take a lot of work to build the structure and the systems to get this program started. And she is really good at that stuff. So this is probably my favorite thing we have going on in my division right now. And I'm really proud of what we've done with it. And I'm going to hand off to Carol and let her tell you some of the results of her hard work with that.
Good afternoon to the council. As Rachel mentioned, our economic mobility program for advancement and career training is funded by the additional money that the federal government gave us with CSBG. And it was called our CARES funding. And so it was for anyone who had been impacted by COVID. And so what we did in October 2021, we started the program with our first cohorts from the College Hill community, and we created the infrastructure for a 9-week program that provides career and soft training skills to help residents in low-income communities obtain full-time, livable wage employment, which is designed to move them from poverty to self-sufficiency. And while they are in the program, they are also awarded up to a $4,500 stipend to assist them with expenses that they have going on while they're in the program. So a few of the highlights from cohort number 1, we had 10 participants that qualified, and 8 of them successfully completed the program and received their certification and engaged in our graduation ceremony that we held on December 6th at the Bessie. 3 of our graduates, 3 of the 8, which represents 38%, have obtained livable wage jobs averaging between $36,000 and $40,000 a year. So we're super excited about that. And one of our graduates received a position with a company where we just learned that the employer wants her to be the liaison with our impact program because she's doing such an amazing job at the company that company wants to recruit more people that are coming through our impact program so that they can hire more people. And one of the graduates of the 3 actually received a job from the city of Chattanooga in the help desk area. And so we're excited that our HR department has also come on board to be a hiring partner for us. And so we're working with the IT team and our HR department to make sure that those graduates from our program are looked at and given opportunities to do exactly what the program is designed to do. And the remaining ones from our first cohort are still actively engaged, and we're providing wraparound support to them to help them still be engaged in the hiring process. And we are in partnership in terms of making this happen. We do have some community partners, which include Chattanooga State. They actually offer the instructor for the program for us. And we have the Enterprise Center where they bring in the Tech Goes Home piece, which allows the participants to receive their Chromebooks free of charge to them so that they can matriculate through the program. And we also work with the American Job Center. They were responsible for covering the tuition for the participants in our first cohort. And then the Chattanooga Chamber of Commerce also provided some funding to us out of their foundation funds. So it's really a collaborative effort, and it's been amazing. And so we're proud to announce that on March 28th, we are kicking off cohort number 2, and we have approved the 11 applicants. There is an assessment test that has to be taken in order for them to receive funding and other things that come with the program. And what we're excited about is that we started in Councilwoman Dotley's district, and we are now moving into 5 districts. I just got that information today before we came to the council because I wanted to report that to you. And so we are going to have, of these 11 participants, they are coming from District 1, 4, 7, 8, and 9. And so those are the districts that will be represented. And we're super excited that in just a short period of time, we've taken it from one community and it's spreading around the city, which is what we intended to do in the beginning. But our first cohort was a pilot, and we built the infrastructure from that. We have a lot of lessons from that. We grew from that, but we graduated people and they're working. And so we're kicking that off on Monday. And again, they are going to matriculate through the 9 weeks. And the other thing that's amazing about this cohort is the diversity that's coming in. We have more men. We have Black, white, and Asians in this group. And so the diversity spread really fast in a short period of time. And we also have a veteran that is going to be in this cohort. And some of them have some previous college experience as well as working experience, but they fell on hard times. And so this program is going to give them a hand up. And we always tell them it's not a handout, it's a hand up, because you have to work for this certification. And so for those who have worked before, this is an opportunity to get them back into the workforce. And lastly, we are strengthening our relationship with our economic development department, working with Jermaine and his team, so that as they go through this program, we have a whole different department in the city that can continue to provide us the support that we need to connect them with employers, in addition to the pool of employers that we're already working with, such as EPB, Zycron, and other hiring employers that are working and looking at our cohort. So we're super excited about this program. We're thankful for the government for giving us this money to use to help those who have had a COVID impact get back into the workplace and receive this certificate that will position them for a livable wage job to move them from poverty to self-sufficiency. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the presentation. And we just have one hand in the queue, Councilman Hester. Is it an old hand?
Actually, this is for Chris and Todd, I guess.
Okay. And as they're coming up to the mic, I wanted to make draw attention to the individual Carol referenced, who has been hired by the city. She's working with us today in the back, and we're extremely proud of her. And I did share with her before the meeting started that I would make a big thing out of it. So we're extremely proud of her and our teammates for participating with us and allowing our graduates to be considered for the workforce. Councilman?
Okay, we're talking about collaboration and partnership. And I know the women, the seniors at in Washington Hills will kill me if I don't say something about this. You said we said a lot about the youth. I know, Tony, you mentioned something about the seniors too. How can we partner with the seniors and with the youth? There's a saying in Middle East, old men prepare, young men to walk. Our elderly have a lot to give to our young people. So how can we bridge that gap?
Excited you brought that up. We actually were just having a huge internal staff meeting about multi-generational camps and bringing together our seniors and our youth together in one atmosphere, and talking about playing different types of music and things like that. And also, Councilwoman Hill, we're excited that the Wyatt Community Center is now open. So we hope to have some of that multi-generational mixture within that community. And so hopefully that can be a pilot for what we want to do across the city. So yes, that is already on our radar. I hear from Erskine every day. We actually did a walkthrough of the Glenwood Community Center and just talking about what's in that community and seeing how we could bring folks of all ages together into one setting. Some folks that are seniors say, hey, I really don't want to be around those young folks. I want to just deal with my area, but just letting them know that they're an important part of their development and understanding that they can learn from them and vice versa. So hopefully that answered it.
Appreciate that.
Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Tony, and all the staff for your great presentation. I don't have any more lights, so I guess that is it. We'll adjourn to 6. Wow.
Yeah, you got it. You hit it.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I'll get this. Actually, let's do it right now. Hey, we found with appointing a former mayor, reappointing him to the EPD. Okay. Mayor said it was okay, apparently, so okay, I'll get it going. Good. That one's easy. What if I said no? I mean, it's up to the mayor, right? That one's easier to learn. I think that all those white people put on the. Yeah, no problem. Hopefully he'll get something out of John.
As far as he leaned on the property adjacent to the church.
Weird. Actually, let me. You're the best person to ask. So there's a church in.
What's that church? Jeffrey Wilson.
The United.
Yeah, they want to acquire the property next door. It has some liens on it. I think they
Are they city link?
City link, right.
I mean, because we can get them all.
But
Is it back tax? Back tax? Do you know?
back to
Okay. So the real issue is, what does he want to do with the property?
They're gonna expand the church.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit more complicated for us. I think if we were to convert the land, we'd need to like